Hello. Well, I'm sorry I didn't have a video last week. Not a great deal has happened. The 22nd of February is the magic day when the powers that be say that they can install three-phase electricity to my workshop. So we'll see if that happens. I've had a lot of trouble organising that. Actually paid for it last July. So I've concentrated on just putting the lathe back together, so as soon as I get three-phase power I can actually run the thing and take some test cuts. This is the mounting plate for the main motor, and the motor itself has 4 feet which bolt onto here like that with these rubberized mounts. This rubber is still flexible, but it's almost exactly the same thickness as this metal case. So if I do this up tightly against here, it seems to me that it's not really providing, the metal is going to come into contact with there, and it's not really going to provide an anti-vibration capability. So I thought, well, I need to get some replacements for these, but I couldn't find any exactly like this. So what I've done is that I've come up with this, which is a slightly bigger mount, but it's got much more rubber between it. And that would go like that and use the same size bolts. The only problem is that this has got a lip on it which needs to seat inside there. So I thought what I'd do is just mill out each of these. There'll still be enough thread for the bolt to engage on. So that will sit down. The other disadvantage of this technique is that it's going to be about 2 or 3 millimeters further off the plate, but that doesn't really matter to me, to my mind. Well, it is taking a rather long time because I have to put one tool in to centre it over the existing hole. Then I have to use a 16mm end mill to plunge down 4mm. Then I have to use a boring bar to enlarge that from 16 to 18.3. And my boring bar is too small to do that in one go, so I have to do it in several steps. It's all a bit of a nuisance. Right, well, I've done that, and they fit in okay. I've had to use 35mm bolts rather than 30mm bolts because of the slightly increased thickness of these new anti-vibration mounts. And there are 2 washers under the head of each bolt, but it's still sticking out a little bit, a millimetre or so on this side. So I'm going to grind these down with a carbide burr because this plate fits flat against the headstock side, and therefore there cannot be anything sticking out there. I'm just putting some medium strength Loctite on these bolts, otherwise I think they're just going to come out. And you could ask why I'm using such an absurd method of dispensing Loctite. You could ask that, couldn't you? Why don't I use the spout that Henkel has conveniently provided? Well, the answer for that is it doesn't sodding well work, whether you pull it or push it. And it never has worked since I bought this stuff. I even sent, I only got lots of Loctite bottles. I even sent this one, I sent a photograph of it to Henkel and said, is this a fake? Because the sodding stopper doesn't work, spout doesn't work. And they said, no, it looks like one that's made in our factory in China. So I have to do it like this. So I replaced the motor on the headstock in that way. The old bolts were well worn out, so I replaced them with new ones. An annoying thing about this motor is that you can't get this cap off the electrical connections because you can't get these two screws off whilst the motor is in place. So you have to put the electrical connections on whilst the motor is out here and then manoeuvre it into position, which is slightly awkward. The two bolts that I'm showing here are threaded upwards into the headstock, and they push downwards onto the motor plate. So to increase the belt tension, you unscrew these two bolts.